historical buildings have been altered in that way and turned into condos and apartments and offices and et cetera. So, but in terms of the actual hauntings in Casa Loma, just to sort of wrap it up and talk about it, I haven't really heard of anything. I haven't experienced anything outside of Sir Henry and Mary and the possible, servants and or staff that was associated with the property. I have not heard because the house was never...
I wasn't able in my research to come up with any sort of particular haunting stories or anything. Yeah.
No, there seems to be, as we said, a lot of the same kind of reports of, hair being pulled, hair being touched in the tunnel, the sounds of the clippity-clop of hooves, the feelings up in the bedroom areas of that, and then in the stable itself in the upstairs with the person. And I believe that was probably it could have been, again, the gentleman that looked after the horses. He likely lived upstairs in that building. So
probably,
yeah. So I suspect that, we're walking, when we walk into there, we're moving into a place and time that, of course, doesn't exist anymore. And they, and that's the one thing that we don't know yet as, people who research and or, study pseudoscience or paranormal, et cetera. We don't really know, even though we feel like we do on occasion get communicative responses. Mm-hmm. We don't really know if they are seeing us or seeing this time period, or are we moving through their era, their time period, right? Like, are we moving through that layer of, quantum reality to them, or are they coming to us? I always feel like I'm going to them.
That's right.
That's what I feel.
Yeah, that's how I see it too, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't think that they have any concept or understanding of what they would see now. I mean, the 1920s, things, of course, there was electricity and there was, telephones and there was cars and there was many things. So people may be able to, see that it's just a more modernized version of that. But when we get further back into the middle 1800s and things, I often wonder. But I always feel like I'm intruding on their timeline, opposed to them intruding on mine. Right? How do you feel about that, Ian? Do you sort of think that too? Or?
They were there first.
Yeah, very much. I've done some communication sessions, and you get into a conversation with the spirit, and sometimes you ask the question, what year is it? And you get the response, 1928.
Right.
Well, there you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, because they don't, I believe that we move into their time frame, and we're very lucky when we can do that. I think.
It's also the same with language. I think if there's a certain spirit that speaks a certain language, that, obviously we have a more modernized language. They don't automatically understand our slang words or our, the way that we pronounce things or the way we, what we're, they don't understand.
Now, our speech pattern has changed dramatically since the 1930s.
Oh, yes.
1940s.
Yes.
So even that, that time when, like, my parents were born, some people's grandparents may have been born. The way that we speak today and the way that we communicate is vastly different from what it was even in that time period. So even in that, 60, 70 years, 80 years, it's been monumental in the way that we speak and the words that we use and the slangs that we use and the speed in which we speak and many different things. So, body language, gestures, all of those things. So if they are able to see that, I don't think they'd be able to relate to it at all. Where, if we're moving into their time frame, I think we're able to adjust to some degree our our abilities to grasp and understand that more, I think. But I always, like I said, I always feel like I am intruding on them as opposed to them intruding on me. And when I've done investigations in homes for people who have, problem spirits, as they like to call them, I'm like, well, you need to remember that you're in their space. They're not in your space. This was their space before your space. So, somewhere along the way, you either have to figure out what you do to coexist, or you have to leave, or you have to ask them to leave. And I don't like to ask spirits to leave unless they are detrimental to somebody's health and existence, right? I would prefer to live amicably with them in the space, but that's me, right? So that being said, everybody.
Gosh, that's been a great show today, I think. We've covered so much in the 2 hours that we've had. It's been incredible. And I'm absolutely delighted, Sika, that you mentioned Vault Castle, because that's a personal favorite place of mine to visit.
Oh, I love it.
And it's very close to my heart. My husband spoke about it, but, when we were dating, and I was able to come across to America from England and visit the place for myself. And I was just stunned, to be honest, by the sheer amount of similarities between Vault Castle
and Casa Loma.
Which is something I definitely want to explore in a different episode, and I'm pleased that we're going to be covering Vault Castle in a different episode.
We will.
It's been such a learning experience this episode, because I haven't been to Casa Loma, and I can't speak for those personal experiences like you guys, but I'm definitely very fascinated by the place. It just looks phenomenal. It's so beautiful. It's so rich in history. I can't wait to see it for myself and definitely learn more about it. But whether I'll book a reservation at the restaurant, we shall see.
Yeah, and despite our tangent on the restaurant, remember, people who are listening,
I've learned a lot about Australian food in this episode.
I don't want people to get mad at us and go, well, you guys are slagging the restaurant, but it's always personal opinion on our shows. So you may not see or hear, or we may not come together and necessarily have the same viewpoints, but we're always open to it. And like I said, I haven't been there since, so I just get a little weary when I see high price tags and in historical locations, etc. But that being said, next week we are moving to the end of the month, and I was wondering, because Ian, I know that you went out to Doan's Hill Cemetery and you saw the Witch's Gate, the same one that I had gone to see. Do we want to do a show on Witch's Gates and talk about those and what they are and why they were put into cemeteries next week? Because I think that's an interesting topic that I don't think I've ever heard covered on any other paranormal program before.
Well, there we go.
Yeah, so
we'll go down that rabbit hole.
That's it, down the rabbit hole. Yeah, so we'll talk about the Witch's Gates and what exactly was their purpose and what are they, for that matter, and where do you find them and why do you find them, and etc. We've got a few even in Ontario. I'm sure that you have some there too in upstate New York, Rachel. Actually, I came across 2 of them. In England, they're quite prevalent, and in Scotland and a number of other European locations as well. So we'll talk about that next week. I think that'll be a cool topic. We have another paranormal show coming up in mid-October, Ian, just so that you know. I'll send you the date. So last week's show, I don't know, did you listen at all, Ian, or no? Were you busy doing other things?
I only caught the very end of it.
Okay. Yeah, we had a great show. It was really good, and it worked out really well. Our last hour of calls, people coming in, we were swamped with calls. It was great. And that show, actually, Rachel, had some of the highest ratings we've had yet.
Some of the highest ratings?
Yes.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm so excited.
Yeah, so that was nice. So that was nice. I think people love those shows. But next week we'll do Witch's Gate. And then, Ian, you sent us a list of some really cool options. So I think we're going to touch on those for October around the mid-month, around our psychic reading show. We'll do those other topics. And did you want to just
getting closer to Halloween? And yeah.
So what were those things that you mentioned so that the folks out there do you remember what they were? The one that really stands out in my mind was the Vlad Tepes. Right. So
story, who
Vlad
was
Dracul.
the basis of Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Dracula. Right.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I definitely talk about that. Mm-hmm. And then I think you had mentioned a couple of there was a particular horror / Halloween-y kind of film that you really loved.
We're talking about Mary Shelley.
We can talk about Mary Shelley, yeah.
Yeah, we could talk about Mary Shelley, the
we could
Frankenstein.
actually combine that show, the Dracula and Frankenstein, and that, like Mary Shelley
that would be a good combo.
Bram Stoker in one episode. That would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
and then
what
was the film that you said that you could talk about for 3 hours, no problem?
Halloween.
Halloween.
John Carpenter's Halloween movie. Yeah.
Right. So maybe we'll do that one like right close to Halloween, right? We'll talk about that one. So what I'll do is I'll get the shows up and I'll just post them, but we'll get them all in there and we'll put them around our paranormal, our psychic show in mid-October, and I'll pad the other rest of the weeks with the other cool topics at hand. So I guess that's it for us today, boys and girls. We're coming up on 2 minutes before the 5 o'clock hour.
And we have so much to look forward to, so keep it up. It's great.
That's it. So we'll get those plugged in. Ian, anything you want to say at before we say bye-bye?
No, that's good. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah, thank you again. And Rachel, thanks for, I enjoy getting together, and I'm really, like I said, Ian, I'm really happy that you've joined Rachel and I, because it's, I know, when you try to get a word in. But
this is a lot of fun.
We're always learning something new. It's great. That's what I particularly enjoy.
Oh, for sure.
And feel free. I do not need to steer the show every week, although I do. But it's just, it's just because it is what it is right now. But if anybody feels that they want to take over the steering of the show for a week, let me know. I can sit back and talk less.
Eat popcorn in the background.
It is possible. I can't do that.
Whatever you're reading, it won't be Australian lamb.
Eating an expensive steak from the restaurant.
I'm having that $180 tomahawk steak from Nebraska right now. Right?
That's really funny.
Oh my goodness.
That's great. I think I might just. For the Vlad Tepes episode, I think I might steer the ship.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Great.
Feel free, because I'm good with that. I mean, I know
vampires. Well, we'll touch on Vlad Tepes, but I'm sure
I'm happy to sit back and just listen. Yeah, that would no. Yeah. It's never going to happen, guys.
Not when there's expensive restaurants.
It's all my years in radio, right? So, I could literally talk for 2 hours on my own after being on air on radio. So, anyways, all right, we're going to say goodbye, everybody. Next week's show, Witch's Gates. If you don't know what they are, tune in. It'll be a really great show. And then we will have our next episodes up and ready to go after that. So thank you again for joining myself, Sika, and Rachel, and Ian on Down the Rabbit Hole, and we'll catch you next week. Have a good rest of your week, everybody.